The past year and a half, being a pro wrestling fan has been filled with a lot of disappointments. There's been kind of a renewal of competition in the wrestling space, and we've had a lot of great matches, a lot of great storylines, and it's been fun in that respect. But there's this other side that's just been disappointing is one word to use. Whether it's people in the business getting in stupid tweet wars, people in the business who you thought stood for something, and then it turned out that they didn't really stand for that. Allegations made about this, that, and the third, and that's probably a video for a different time period. But today is one of the first times in a long time that I have really considered just not being a part of this wrestling community anymore. And it's over the Vince McMahon allegations. And there's a couple of different pieces to this. I'm not going through those allegations. I've read pretty much everything that there is out there. And I've taken the last couple of days or the last day to read it because I didn't want to post a video without knowing what I was talking about. I'm not going to do a 3-part series about this. I'm not going to gloat or be dismissive or be defensive or whatever, or, be tickled about, ooh, dirty wrestling news. This is pretty serious stuff. And we just went through this a couple weeks ago with something that turned out to kind of be a nothing burger, I guess. There was never any real resolution to that situation I'm not going to bring up because I don't want this to turn into an AEW versus WWE thing. This is far more important than that. But the allegations about Vince McMahon and that have come out in this lawsuit that is a follow-up from what happened last year. There's plenty to read about it elsewhere. I don't even really want to talk about some of the stuff in there because it's pretty gross. It's pretty gross. Now these are allegations again, and much like the last situation, I'm not gonna have an opinion as to whether or not it was true or not. As far as it's difficult to talk about this kind of thing. The difference with this one, though, is that I don't have a hard time believing this because there's been so many allegations against Vince McMahon, not just within the last couple of years, but over the last couple of decades, and about people in that corporate culture. There's a interview that Larry King had with Bruno Sammartino and Vince, where Bruno was talking about some certain things at that time and before that time that were going on. This was in the early 90s. There's a lot out there. So while I'm not going to say whether or not Vince is guilty or innocent, it's not up for me to say that. It's almost, for me as a wrestling fan, it's the thing that's important is the fact that I don't have a hard time believing it. And that's the part that kind of bothers me a lot, is because, as probably everybody who's listening to this, have at one point in time, whether you still are or not, have been a fan of the WWE. We've bought pay-per-views, subscribed to the WWE Network. I've been to so many shows, house shows, pay-per-views. Some of you guys buy a lot of merch and stuff. And the thing is, if this is all true, and again, I have a hard, it's very hard for me to kind of hear all this stuff and read through all that stuff and kind of go, well, if any of this, even 10% of this stuff is true, it's pretty bad. It bugs me that money that I gave to these people to watch their shows or whatever was used for NDAs to cover up stuff like this. And I don't know, man. The Vince stuff is just disgusting. And I just hope that the justice comes out and the right thing comes out, because we all know money can get in the way of justice a lot of times, especially in the United States. So I'll let the trial deal with what the trial is. And I wanted to do a different video today. I wanted to talk about the Netflix deal. I wanted to talk about Dwayne Johnson being appointed to the board of TKO. I wanted to talk about how badass Bullet Club Gold's new entrance is, like everybody else's catch. That thing's called fire. That's the stuff I wanted to talk about today, and give a preview to this weekend's New Japan shows, a very stacked AEW Collision show, and of course the Royal Rumble. And I find myself scrapping that entire audio that I recorded earlier and thinking, man, I gotta talk about this. I wanted to avoid it, but you can't avoid it. I shouldn't avoid it. It's gross. It makes me feel uncomfortable because, for those of you who don't know me or my channel, I'm an old school wrestling fan. I used to do retrospective videos. A lot of you guys, I think like once a month I'll get somebody ask me a comment, are you going to continue that old retrospective videos that you did? I have a really hard time doing them now. Because when I look at some of these videos, I'll see somebody and go, oh, geez, oh, God, I have a tough time, like with the Chris Benoit thing. It's very tough. I love the Chris Benoit, Kevin Sullivan feud, but it's very tough for me to go back and watch those matches. I haven't watched them in years. And I loved the feud at the time, but it's very hard for me to watch that stuff. There's a lot of things that have gone on over the years with wrestlers that I've had a very, and they're humans, so they're flawed, but again, what we're talking about here with these these allegations about Vince McMahon are just, it's just too much. I don't even want to hear this dude's name anymore, man. And it's going to be a very, very long, I'm not going to say I'm never going to go back and watch the Attitude Era again, but I was thinking about that today. I was about to go watch some, I wanted to go watch the 98 Rumble, because it was one of my favorite Rumbles, and the 2000 Rumble, and I'm thinking, oh, God. You remember what the angle was Vince was doing in 2000 and 2001 with Trish Stratus? Which is part of, by the way, what everybody regards to be the greatest WrestleMania of all time, which is WrestleMania X7. That was one of the main feature matches on it, was that match between, I think it was Vince and Shane, and part of that was Trish Stratus's subservient role that she was playing as Vince McMahon's. I don't even want to. I don't even want to talk about this mess, man. It's so gross. It's so freaking gross. I'm just spitballing, man. I had a format for this. I'm not even reading off the script. This is just disgusting. This is just disgusting, dude. Anyway, I hope that it gets resolved. I hope that justice is served. I hope that this woman and any other woman, because I'm sure this is not the only time, and she's not the only one. She might be the only one for this unique situation. And for those of you who don't know, the alleged victim in this, I don't want to really give her name, because I know a lot of people, I've seen people look her up and then start posting stupid crap with her picture, so I don't want to put her name out. I mean, you can find it if you read the Wall Street Journal article. I don't want to kind of contribute to that, because people are doing some really disgusting stuff right now, which is another thing I'll talk about in a second about the community. But I just hope justice is served, and something is done. This is terrible. I have not been this irritated with something that happened in wrestling since the Saudi Arabia shows. And so a lot of you know, I do not cover WWE Saudi Arabia shows. I just don't. And I guess we'll just transition into my thoughts on the community. I've seen, fortunately, most people have, at least some freaking sense about them that kind of go, this is horrible. This is disgusting. I have seen some WWE sweaties getting butthurt because, you guys are going to say Triple H is implicated. Nobody said Triple H was implicated. However, he is the son-in-law. He is Vince McMahon's son-in-law. He's been running that company for a while. He's one of the higher ups. He's married to Stephanie. According to the allegations, Linda found out about this a while ago. So a lot of people have asked the logical question, if Lance Storm said it on Wrestling Observer Live, and when he said it, it immediately struck with me. Lance Storm said, well, anybody who knew about this should be removed from WWE. And I immediately thought, how in the hell would Triple H not know about it? if again the allegations are true and Linda did find out about this, what was it, 2019 or 20 or whatever it was, whenever she found out about it, and then I had to think back to all that weird stuff when Stephanie like had to quote unquote left the company, and then she had to come back, and then she left, and Triple H was sick, and it's very hard for me to believe that he didn't know anything about it. Now, am I saying that Paul Levesque should be removed? Absolutely not. That's not my case to call. That's not anybody's case to call. It has nothing to do with tribalism or being pro AEW or anti AEW or pro WWE or anti WWE. It's just a logical thing. Triple H, Paul Levesque, is the son-in-law of Vince McMahon, and he has been a top executive in that company for a long time. It's going to be very hard to convince anybody that he didn't know anything about this. It's possible, and nobody should condemn him, and nobody should call for Triple H to be fired, certainly, but it is a possibility. And you shouldn't let your fandom sway you one way or another. If you're anti-WWE, you shouldn't want that to be true. And if you're a pro WWE sweaty, you shouldn't completely dismiss it as being a possibility, because at the end of the day, all of that stuff doesn't matter as long if it better not hurt my enjoyment of watching WWE TV. Because if it does that, then they have a problem, right? Then there's a problem, which is why they want to be so dismissive of it. This shit is just, people are terrible. It's just the end of that. And you know, again, like I said, I've seen a lot of you guys in the community, people I haven't even seen for a while in the community, you know, being really level-headed about this. But there's another part of the community that isn't so much. And that is the people who used to be in the business, who have podcasts and YouTube channels. You guys know the guys I'm talking about. Talking about your Bully Rays and Booker T and Kevin Nash and Eric Bischoff and Dutch Mantell and Jim Cornette. So today, which by the way, a lot of my other YouTube peers, once again, I'm giving them credit because I've been really hard on my peers in the quote-unquote wrestling journalism, which doesn't even really exist, but the wrestling journalism and dirt sheet and YouTuber podcaster space for being irresponsible. Most of them have been amazingly responsible with this story, as they were with the last story that came out last month. But I have not seen a word from some of the aforementioned former people who were formerly in the business, except for one. I did see Jim Cornette's video. I saw Cornette trending this morning on Twitter, and I was wondering why, because he trends every once in a while. And as I was looking around and watching what a lot of people were thinking about in reports, you know, I wasn't watching wrestling shows. I was watching Forbes and Wall Street Journal and CNN and all these and news outlets who were covering the story and what they were saying about it. Jim Cornette's video popped up. Now, full disclosure, I met Jim Cornette several years ago. I've talked about this on the channel before. Him and I had a half-hour conversation because I wanted to pick his brain about all the stuff that happened with the Crockett territory back in the day. And, you know, we made fun of Vince Russo. He drew a picture for me, drawing all this weird stuff on Vince Russo's face and everything else. And we have a picture. I'm not going to share the picture. But I bought a DVD from him that I don't have anymore. But I was leaning towards Camp Cornette back in those days. And then a couple years ago, and some of you may also remember this, the audio, there was during that whole NWA debacle where he was basically forced out of being a commentator on NWA because he made a comment that people thought was racist. I took it as racially insensitive and not so much racist. I don't think he really should have been fired for it, even though it was offensive, but I took it as he's an old guy. He doesn't know any better, right? Until later, as I was researching for that video and found an audio clip of him using the N-word while talking to fans. So a fan recorded this while he was talking to them, using the N-word in this, talking to them, describing a time that he used the N-word to start essentially a race riot at a wrestling show back in the day. And that was enough for me to be done with him. But now he's got this podcast, and I've seen this video. It's got like 250,000 views where he and his co-host, whoever that guy is, I don't care what the guy's name, it doesn't matter what the guy's name is, his version of Conrad Thompson, are going over the Wall Street Journal story, and they're laughing about it initially. and cracking jokes. And of course, relating everything to wrestling. Is this what he did with Smoky Mountain? That's what he did with Smoky Mountain. He pays money and doesn't pay the rest of it. You know, that kind of tone deaf, my head's too far up the ass of pro wrestling to understand anything about reality kind of mindset. You all know those kind of fans, right? I was hoping that I stopped it at 5 minutes. I was like, all right, well, let me listen to the rest of it, because maybe as they realize how serious this is, the tone will change and they'll stop cracking jokes, because it's kind of disgusting. That moment never came. In fact, I got to the point where Jim Cornette he knew before he said this that this was something probably he shouldn't say, because he prefaced it by saying, this may upset other people, because, you know, that's what shitty people do. When they're about to do something shitty, they immediately deflect it to, oh, it's your problem for finding what the shitty thing that I'm about to do or say is shitty. So he did that little bullshit. And then said, well, you know, something that implied that maybe the alleged victim in this case enjoyed some of this, either the actual acts that were performed or the money from it. Bro, this woman is claiming that several times she was assaulted with the R word, which, you know, I might not even be able to use that. This video might get demonetized maybe get taken down if I use the actual word. But you guys know what word I'm talking about, the R word, 4 letters. And they're still and they're continuing to read this. They're reading the stuff about Vince naming sex toys after WWE superstars, using it on this woman to the point where she was injured. And then Cornette's like, well, I don't know, somebody doesn't know how to use one of those, or that you injure somebody. Well, if you use an oversized thing, anytime I'm not even going to go into it. If you don't understand how somebody can be damaged by whatever, watch the movie Seven, you'll figure it out. Anyway, I turned it off, and I don't know, man. I'm at a loss. Again, I should be reading from my script, and I'm not doing it. But I'm lost for words on this. Like, how tone deaf can you possibly be? But I guess it's indicative of, unfortunately, that generation of people in the wrestling business, man. And I shouldn't cast a whole generation, but there are people who are in that generation who were getting away with doing stuff like this, or don't think any stuff like this is a big deal. And in fact, it's kind of something to laugh at and make jokes about. It makes it hard being, especially for me as an old school fan. You think about some of that stuff, like the Kiss My Ass Club and all the that gif of him that's wild, where he's like, his eyes are rolling back because some young blonde woman is sitting on his lap or whatever the hell it is. You know, all of that stuff, dude. Like, how can you go back and watch those old Attitude Era and the early Entertainment Era, or whatever that era was called, and the stuff that he was doing then, and knowing these allegations now, and just, I don't know, man. I think this is just one of the most this is one of the few times. Well, I'm not stop the cap. I'm going to be truthful about this. There have been 3 times in the last year and a half I've thought about just, I'm done with wrestling. It's too disgusting of a genre. There's too much crap with it. There's too many people who, you know, I'm a fan of their character, and I thought that part of them bled into their character and they were somebody of some integrity, only to find out that that integrity wasn't there. And then the speaking out stuff, and I don't know. I'm not going to stop being a wrestling fan just yet, but I don't know. Let's do the positive. The bright spot is it's not everybody. And I am going to bring up one AEW thing here. I am going to go back and think about something that Tony Khan said when he talked about how AEW had the best record for safety, and people were mocking him because he's like, didn't you just say CM Punk? You fear for your life for CM Punk? Completely being obtuse to the fact that what he was talking about was this exact situation. He was talking about the safety from sexual assault. and that AEW had probably the best track record of any company. And he's kind of right, because it ain't like it's just WWE. I mean, hell, part of the reason Kota Ibushi's not in New Japan anymore is because of issues he had with certain wrestlers there that never got cleared up, that never was followed up on. We've seen a lot of other stuff on the indie/local wrestling scene that, but not everybody's like that. And we just have to keep that in mind. And at the end of the day, this is entertainment. And maybe I'm an advocate for this. Not that things should be swept underneath the rug, but actually, no, I'm not an advocate. No, I can't be an advocate for it. Here's what I'm an advocate for. Not so much that we shouldn't know so much about these celebrities and these stars anymore, because that puts the onus on us, and why should we have to carry that burden? Maybe the burden should be on the performers to not be pieces of crap. How about be better people? How about not use your power and influence to intimidate women, to intimidate not even just women, but people who are broke and this is their dream to be a wrestling star, and you take advantage of them? That's men and women and others. How about just being decent people? There's a reason why I've had a very hard time cheerleading WWE as a company, and stuff like this, which this is the worst of the worst of the worst by far. But it's things like this that have happened, and the stories and reports like this over the years that have soured me on that company. And even though, yeah, they've been putting on a great on-screen product the last 2 years, it still doesn't change the fact that, and I've said this before, some of the things that go on with WWE corporate, some of the things I've heard about WWE corporate, some of the things that we've seen about WWE corporate, it is very hard for me to be a cheerleader of that company that has had a culture like this that existed for 40 years. And there's going to be more fallout from this, because there's other people listed in there. I don't know. I completely am off script with this. I'm just rambling, and I'm just ranting right now, which is appropriate. I rarely ever rant on this channel, which is part of the oxymoron of why I named the channel Rassslin Rantin and Rant Review, because I don't rant a lot. But this is a rant. I admit it. I don't know, guys. I'm going to try to enjoy the Royal Rumble today. I'm going to try to enjoy wrestling, even though like I said, the last 6 months, I've been so disappointed by so many things in the wrestling community and the wrestling business. It's becoming, despite all the good content we're getting, it's getting very hard to feel good about being a wrestling fan. Let's hope for the rest of 2024, we see some better stories and better things that make it not feel so grody to be a fan of this genre. Because before, when I was younger, you didn't want to admit to being a wrestling fan because you were kind of embarrassed. I talked to my neighbors the other day, and they know WWE, they know Vince McMahon, and they know about this story. This paints a bad picture for the entire wrestling industry, because most people who aren't in this community think wrestling is just WWE, because WWE and its fans have made the perception that way. But again, let's look on the optimistic side, and hopefully in 2024 and in the future, a better culture in that genre develops. But that's just what I think about it. I know I'm going to get some backlash from WWE sweaties, Jim Cornette, whatever they call themselves, his sycophants and whatever. I don't care. I mean, if you're going to get really belligerent in the comment section, you're going to get deleted anyway. So knock yourself out if you really, really want to be that stupid. But I do, again, like the last situation, I caution people when you write comments, be mindful, think about what you say before you say it and before you type it, and try to be respectful to each other and try to be respectful to everybody involved in the situation. But that's it. I'll catch up with you guys. I will watch the Rumble tonight. I'll do a review, but yeah, this is the second pay-per-view in a row where something like this is kind of spoiled. The date right before the pay-per-view is spoiled, because you can't just enjoy it as entertainment. You got to look at it and go, well, I'm enjoying a product made by a person that may have done something terrible, or there may be other people I'm watching that may have done something terrible, and this company may be covering up something terrible. It's like, anyway, enough of me ranting. You guys, you know what to do. Hit the like button, all that other stuff. I'll talk to you guys later.